good afternoon. It's Shirley with Spirit of Matter, and we are with February astrology for Aries. So, right now it is a Venus day and Jupiter hour, with the ascendant ruled by the Sun, and the Sun is on the 7th house on the descendant, very angular, and the midheaven ruled by Mars in 28 degrees Aries, with Mars and Capricorn in the 6th and Mercury conjuncting it. So, yeah. Luna is in 15 degrees Leo, and Venus in Capricorn, Jupiter in Taurus, Saturn in Pisces at the time of the recording. Now let's get to February for Aries sign. So before the lunations, this is a month where all planets are direct, and that gives us a little bit of a time off. The planets we have in shade period are Pluto and Uranus. So yes, we are going over things that we went about a year ago and then 6 months ago. And we're kind of seeing this again with a different configuration of the planets. And you can watch my Venus in Capricorn while Uranus is going direct video, which I did today. So February is more of a smooth ride, okay? I can't guarantee because we are still going through, first of all, we haven't completely finished the shade period of Saturn, which we're finishing up, and we're still going through a shade period of the outer planets. So, yes, there are things going in the background, okay? Mundanely, just this day, we had the Hague basically having a kind of a midway verdict. It was kind of like, oh, Israel is doing a genocide and it should stop it, but they don't really give like a ceasefire, just to kind of accentuate that, like, hey, do what you need, but don't kill civilians, and quote a lot of the people that were saying things like there are no uninvolved in Gaza, and the Amalek stuff and all that, all the ways in which people have been speaking. So yes, there are things happening in the background, absolutely, while genocides continue to be, but it is not an eclipse, and it is not tremendous retrogression, and there is the giant ingress into Aquarius, and this is what we're going to go over besides the lunation. And the giant ingress, what do I mean the giant ingress? This stellium that we have in Capricorn, which means all the planets, not all the planets, but we have full 5 planets in Capricorn, you know. Now the sun has moved to, has it? To Aquarius, yes. Okay, sun astrology in me. So the first step is February 5, Mercury enters the doorway to Aquarius. So we're gonna build up to a stellium in Aquarius. For you as an Aries rising, wait, that means that this happens in your 11th house. Okay? So your 11th house is going to be hectic. 11th house is both our social networking circles with the amenities involved. Okay, it's allies and frenemies as well. But it's the kind of people that you befriend when you talk about like your colleagues, or the people you do networking events with, the people you would see at the conference more so than the people you would see at the office every day. Okay, that the latter would be the 6th house. Okay, unless your office is at home and it involves more stuff. But the thing is, the 11th is also your social agenda, or whatever agenda you have. So your agendas are going to be building up this month. And, you know, we kind of like going from the Piscean activists of January and delivering, kind of like passing the torch to the Aries activists. And so I know what I want to see, but usually when I want to see something, I say, okay, I should tend to do this myself. Mercury ingresses, meeting Pluto, because Pluto is 0 degrees Aquarius already. And anything that enters your 11th house goes through the gate of Pluto. With Mercury, so first of all, what does Mercury rule for you? It rules your 6th house and it rules your 3rd house. That might mean that you either are working with siblings or neighbors and you're going to a conference together, or your allies are also the people in your office, or you have enemies where you go to have a speech, or in your social agenda, your dreams and goals. And what's happening now with this passing of Mercury in your 11th is that through the gate of Pluto, your dreams and goals are transforming your schedule, your relationships with siblings. If you have any pets, that might as well be the case. Because 6th house is pet, your physical health, and your duties. Okay, so let's say you have a little of agenda going on, then you write a post on Facebook or on Twitter, and then people see it, okay, and your neighbors see it, and so on and so forth. So there is a gate of incarnation there. Aquarius is an air sign, so we can expect that to be in communication, information, data, sharing information, maybe even sharing or going through the gate of some hidden information, being informed of things that are hidden. Pluto and Aquarius in general, if we're talking scientifically, we're talking about gravity as a wave. We're talking about the nervous system and waves that we have not seen. We are also talking about the psychology affecting the nervous system. So looking into how, let's say, PTSD and CPTSD are also neurological manifesting challenges, okay, and how that affects your speech. That might as well be the case. We are looking into how psychology affects our ability to see, not to see, but more to sense waves, or to connect as a nervous system. Okay, so those are things that are being explored throughout the 2 decades of Pluto in Aquarius. Saturn is in Pisces, so we're going to talk about medical implications, about communication with faraway lands, okay, but also gaps in communication. Saturn is ruling Aquarius, and if we want to pay attention to Uranus, that is also modernly associated with Aquarius, we're also taking Taurus into account. And so our nervous system and the soil, our nervous system and food, our nervous system and our relationships, our nervous system and pleasures, our nervous system and our fertility. Okay, for example, if you have, let's say, mononucleosis, which is basically sitting on your nervous system, There are also fungal infections that are sitting on your nervous system and affect your nervous system. So your little toenail or atlas foot or candida might be a little bit more than an aesthetic or an itch. So this is where you want to look also to those places, okay, to the nervous system and to oppression, to power relation, trauma, shock that have occurred, that have affected the whole thing. Mercury Pluto is going to facilitate looking into whatever affect and it's been affected by words, communication, exchange of energy. And energy is okay. When we talk about energy, we're not just talking thermodynamics. Okay, this is very important. Aquarius is where we try to give a scientific explanation to phenomena that are of chaotic nature, of non-linear nature, and we go all the way up to the spirit world. And so the next sign would be Pisces, where we're like completely spiritual and blending with, and we're taking into account the complete absence of physical traces and looking for omens. While in Aquarius, we are still trying to offer an explanation to, let's say, even stuff like astrology. And so we can expect to see a lot of antithetical relationship with the non-dual existence, okay, spirit and matter, whether they are united, not united, what are the implications, and so on. So Mercury is also getting into that alchemy sort of a thing. In another realm, it can just be, you know, some juicy secret is exposed about your colleague at the conference, and that's it. Like, you know, to get more out of this, you know, you need to do some work to look into the science and so on. The ruler is at your 12th house, so you might wake up with an equation. Yes, darling. You might wake up with an equation. You might wake up with a scientific question. You might wake up with a little bit of a eureka regarding the nervous system and the body and the voice and the words and stuff like that, or with an experiment in mind. And so you want to be cautious of the possibility that when Saturn is in your 12th, the things of your 10th and your 11th are getting to the 12th. Okay, so work, you might dream about work, but also work, you might undermine yourself. You might lose a position of authority at this time. So you have to surrender both this and your social life or the conference. So somebody might try to invade your spirit realm or your dream realm, or if you dream about a colleague or something like that. Then this is also when Saturn, it's the joy of Saturn is at the 12th, so you're learning to set boundaries and also to communicate in this realm, okay, because Saturn is about discernment. And you will allow it to proceed. And set the boundaries where you need to set the boundaries. That's pretty much where it's at. That's Mercury. So next up, and Mercury will not stay for long. It will ingress into your 12th house on February 23rd. And again, this ingress will mean that matters of the third house, communication, transportation, your daily schedule, your siblings, your neighbors, your neighborhood, and your sixth house, your work, your pets, get into the 12th. So it might mean that you are sleeping with your pet, okay? Your pet decides to sleep with you. There really is nothing you can do about this. and they are entering your bed. It literally can be that simple. It's winter time and it's snowy and they're just, the sixth house is pets. Or you might dream about colleagues or siblings, or somebody might be a little bit undermining, or you just might not be able to see so well what your colleagues or your siblings or neighbors are trying to portray to you. Okay, when somebody is at your 12th, it's your blind spot. This is why we call it hidden enemies, because most people are not walking with trying to be an enemy to a person. Okay, it's not. Yes, it's mostly like, I'm not seen, 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 I'm frustrated. Okay, and then it's a frustration. Somebody builds up a frustration about you that you don't see it, and you don't understand what do they want from you. And you could be, for example, consciously trying to communicate with this person, but there is a blind spot that you don't see. Okay, for example, I had a friend that was a very activistic person, all for the rights of people who are recovering, like from. She was basically anti-psychiatry and stuff like that. But then when it came to work, she was not seen, not seen. And she was constantly trying to communicate with me about the fact that I do astrology. So she was hurt by astrologers. I totally get it. And I totally get that, there are things that need to change so it would be more supportive and so on. But at this point where like somebody's constantly contacting me, where they're triggering just the part where for me, I told you I'm like a whistleblower, but not like I went to work as a whistleblower. It's in my nature and it comes up at work. So they're triggering all of my traumas. And they constantly, so this means I haven't seen charts, but I'm probably having something in her 12th. And even though she's trying to communicate with me, I saw that I become toxic to her because I'm so heartbroken by her. Like, why can't you see this? Why can't you see this? If you have a teaching on how to get out of these things, that's actually helpful. Come on, spread your teaching. But you can't leave people like without income, without any possibility, and excluded and stuff like that. So that tells me I'm probably like a hidden enemy to her. And I don't want to be her hidden enemy. It's just she doesn't see, she doesn't see. I had to do something that she hates, which is to block her, to sort of like ignore her, so that I will not be partaking in a toxic dynamic. Because if you don't see me, then it's the best for us to part, and I will continue to do my path, and you will continue to do your path. But if you're also threatening like my existence and my well-being and literally my life, of course I will have to defend myself. And that is how somebody becomes like hidden enemy to you. Okay, it's just something that's a blind spot to you, and you don't see that, hey, there's somebody neglected there, or there's somebody that you're not taking into your account in your agenda, or there's some perspective that you weren't informed of. And so that is how basically there's some enmity. Okay, or they harbor some feelings depending on what's in there. So with this Mercury, it can be something that you said at work or something that somebody said. Okay, it can be some sort of a contract. It can be something to do with technology. So you want to see how your expression, and it doesn't mean that you need to censor yourself at all. You just understand that we are to be healthy, we need to express ourselves as well, not just to shut up, but also to express ourselves. And it's inevitable that our words are going to catch another person in another context that's going to be awakening things in them. Okay, and sort of every person has their own ways to deal with that. So it's not for you to, let's say, censor your words too much, but it is just be aware that this happens and it can evoke many things, and you are not exactly aware of what it is. Where because Mercury is ruling your sixth and third, so the suspects are colleagues, and it can also be a pet. Like if you said something that, I don't know, you shouted at your pet and now they are afraid of you, or something like that. So you dream about them, and maybe you have a way to kind of like arrange to understand or to divinate around that. Or it can be a neighbor or a sibling, and depending on your capacity to have communication, when Mercury is in your 12th house, it's not suggested so much to have direct communication now. You can be receptive of telepathic communication at this time. So, or even a word that is being said telepathically, okay, can spike up something. And then it's very difficult, you know, if it's coming from a colleague or a sibling, it's very difficult to patch things up because you don't know if you have grounds for communication, and you don't know if they if they know that they said this to you telepathically, or is they're completely ignorant of this. Okay, so all of these things can be Mercury Pisces. Again, it's something to do with the worldview. It's something to do with the philosophy. It's something to do or with children, or usually stuff like that. That you know, somebody is spiked up and you have no idea what about. But also you might get a divination or a dream and you understand what about. 12 is also house of loss, so you might be at loss of words. Somebody might be at loss of words because of you, or next to you. And certain things can go missing as well. So just like technology or something like that. It's kind of like a little, it's not a Mercury retrograde, but it's kind of like it as well too. So this is for the Mercury. And now back to your pact 11th house. Your pact 11th house next up is basically Venus. No, Mars. First of all, Mars. And 13 February is where Mars ingresses into your 11th house. Bobby, come, mama. Mars ingresses into your 11th house, conjuncting Pluto. So the Sun is already in the 11th, Mercury is there, Pluto is there, and now Mars is joining in. Okay, Mars is ruling you and is ruling your 8th house. So you might be acting out in public in a certain way that unfortunately can undermine you. Okay? If you've experienced a betrayal that can be made public, because the ruler of the 11th is in the 12th, and is also the ruler of the 10th. So yes, Mars conjoining Pluto, it's a hard aspect. It's been incredibly informed about taboos to do with war, aggression, passion, drive, justice. Okay, Mars is about severing ties with the unjust. Okay, it's not just the weapon is for self-defense. Usually, the origin of the weapon is for self-defense. Okay, so weapon industry, science of weapon development, patents to do with weapon. Pluto is a cellular level, so we want to talk about maybe even a DNA, a weapon or welfare of the DNA, bloodline, powers, being informed about the medications to do with the plasma and stuff like that. And you say something or you do something or you act in some way that is a bit undermining you. Regarding some of these topics, Mars also rules debt for you or loans that you take. So if you, let's say, invested or ask for crowdfunding, we have a loan. You might say, you might act, just some sort of an action, because Mars is action. Um, and it's an action in space. Um, if you are launching something at this time, then you always have to find an election somehow, but there might be some sort of a surrendering of a project or of a course of action. Aries is not particularly strategic. It's more like the ignition. It's the gut feeling, and it's the gut impulse that has its pros and cons. Okay, so you can be incredibly brave, but here in some way to your detriment. However, the ruler of your 12th house is in your second, so your loss is your gain. Okay, and as a Martian sign, you're not particularly afraid, unless depending on how your Mars is aspected and where it's at. But you're not particularly afraid of confrontation or conflict. And again, whatever you do that's undermining you, you will also eventually somehow in a roundabout way gain from it, and even gain a promotion because Venus is in your 10th house. This is kind of a weird loop playing out there. And Venus is really next up on February 16th to ingress to your 11th. So see how fully packed your 11th is going to be. Okay, with the Sun 27, Mercury 18, Mars 2, and Pluto 0, and then Venus comes in. 1, 2, 3, 4 personal planets and one outer planet. And of course, she ingresses through the conjunction with Pluto. So for you, Venus is ruling the second house and the 7th house. The ingress to the 11th. So some sort of relational transformation that you're going through, and transformation regarding your values and your skills, or the money you make and the money you spend with your skills according to your set of values is being publicly transformed. In what context, I don't know. So Mars is still, okay, you are still at the 11th. Maybe you write something about this. Maybe it's an active speech. Maybe you talk about your relationship with money and how it affected your partnership. Maybe your partner is apt to say a word. It can also be that your partner is transformed by something that you do on that level. Okay, so of course you want to be thinking about how your actions are affecting your partner, as well as your skills and your expenditure and your income by what you make, okay, by your skill. So, and again, in that case, your actions do kind of like fatally a bit undermine you at this time. So you also want to be compassionate with yourself. And yes, Venus is going from the 10th to the 11th. You might, with your authenticity, you might even gain something. Or if it's crowdfunding, you might even gain something in your partner is transformed by this exposure to whatever is going on. Or your dreams and goals are transformative to your partner, or your partner is transformative to your dreams and goals, okay, in that sort of a way. So fully packed 11th. So there's a lot of attention to your goals and dreams, but also to your hobbies. Okay, you might turn a hobby into a vocational kind of agenda. You might be acting on whether it's scientific innovation, scientific innovation, exploring the dream world could be appropriate at this time. So going into the science of dreams, into the spiritual aspect of scientific endeavors is also appropriate. They kind of deliver from outer worlds to the importance of retreating to yourself, to be a part of. You might be given a lecture about how important it is to retreat to yourself. Kind of like, I think about Eckhart Tolle. Basically, he spent, I don't know how many years of his life being a person, is kind of like a homeless and just being, okay? And then he goes out and he lectures about how important is being, and basically how his retreat contributed to his life, and he talks about this publicly now. So it might be a little bit like this for you at this time. So done with the packed 11th. If you want to know about when the sun is entering your 12th house and February 19. Yeah, so sun in the 12th. Well, sun is a luminary. It's the luminary of the day. The 12th is your dreamland. Okay. It's your bedroom. It's what happens when you go to sleep, whether with someone or just your dream state. And so a sun there might be more of a lucid dreaming. Sun is ruling your 5th house. You might have some astral encounters with people. And with Saturn, you might learn how to assert your boundaries at the astral realm. And there's a whole, when it's willingly consensual, which is strange to say about like telepathic communication, stuff like that. There can be a whole landscape, whole world of pleasure to explore. If you have a particular hobby, or you might dream about your child, this can simply mean that, let's say, I don't know, your child is afraid, if you have a young child, is afraid of something, come to sleep in the bed with you. Okay, nothing particularly erotic or anything like that, because 12th house is the bedroom. So it can simply signify, oh, your child is coming to sleep with you and spend the night, and kind of like they want to be close to their parent. Or if it is a romantic partner, you might spend significant time in the bedroom, or you might have astral sex. Saturn, I think, is more denoting of astral sex than actual time in the bedroom, because Saturn is kind of like halting things, okay, for you in the 12th house, but it's halting thing on a physical level. It's more about learning to assert your boundaries on an energy level, and therefore you might actually incarnate either a sexual relationship or astral sexuality. And so another thing is you want to make sure that it might be a bit more difficult to see your child. And in this case, if you have a young child that is coming to sleep at your bed, it might help you to pay attention to the energy and support them in a non-verbal way. But other than that, it might be more difficult for you to see your child, or you might dream of your child because it is a blind spot. Okay, so if your child is going through something, it's going to be more difficult for them to access you because it's on your blind spot. But if you take your child, let's say, for a vacation or to a hotel or something like this, then it will be easier for you to facilitate communication. You will be able to see them more in a very literal way, but also they will be able to feel more seen by you. If it is a romantic partner and you don't spend time in the bedroom, then you might not be able to see them so well, okay? They might feel unseen by you. And so this is where you want to be cautious that they don't turn into like a hidden enemy or betray you because they don't feel seen by you. If they betray you, it's because they don't feel seen by you. It's not a justification. It's just I understand that those things are experiences of the 12th. Fifth house, like I said, hobbies. You might develop a skill of lucid dreaming, or stuff like astral projection. And in this case, you might travel around your neighborhood. So that is, yeah, that can be a nice practice if you do that. So you definitely learn to see things in a different way. Yes, hopefully it's not like your child or a romantic partner going to jail or something, or hospital or something like that. But if that such a thing happened, then it can be that. Okay, so it can be the sun, the ruler of the fifth in the 12th. Those are the ingresses. Now I'm going to go very little bit on. First of all, whenever something conjuncts Pluto, opens the synodic cycle. We talked about that. And later, we're going to have a synodic cycle opening both between Mercury and Saturn, Venus and Mars. So Venus and Mars on the February 22nd, they're going to conjunct in Aquarius. It's your 11th house. You are ruled by Mars. Your partner is ruled by Venus. Okay? So you're going to have an intimate moment with your partner publicly. So, yes, maybe some announcement, I don't know, but it's a new cycle for you. Mercury conjunct in Saturn February 29, and this is happening in your 12th house. So there's a karmic message for you there. That the Mercury renews itself with Saturn in your 12th. So this might be an opening of a time where you pay more attention to messages that are coming from your dream world and how they affect your life. So more on the conjunctions. We have, yes, the Sun opening the synodic cycle with both Mercury and Saturn on February 28th. Okay, so this is where we have a triple conjunction. Do we have a Cazimi Mercury here? I don't know. You have to check it. And of course, around that time, we're going to have Saturn in visibility, Mercury in visibility, and that the exact dates, I will be myself looking to Krassia-Tassia to see when do we see Saturn appearing in the sky and when do we see Saturn disappearing in the sky. With Saturn invisible, we're basically having structures a bit more relaxed. Okay, Saturn is taking away both the guardianship, okay, if it's like your defender, so you have to rely on other stuff like the fixed stars that are rising and so on, but also the limitation. So we have, whenever Saturn is invisible, we have less limitations. For you, it might mean that the veil will be thinner at this time. Fomalhaut can be a great fixed star to work with magically, astrologically. I know both Christopher Warnock and Sphere and Sundry have Fomalhaut talismans. I don't know if in stock, but you might want to check that one out. Because at this time you're going to need an insight to the unknown, and Fomalhaut is going to be providing that when Saturn is no longer able to kind of like help you set a boundary, a clear boundary there. So, or go it through the other Saturn, so that is Deneb Algedy, which I think is still rising at this time. So approaching it from the Deneb Algedy perspective, that also help us with boundaries. And this is going to remediate the effect that it has on your 11th house. So if you want to still benefit from protection, this is how we can go about this. But it is also meaning that some limitations are being temporarily reduced or removed as well. For Mercury going invisible, things missing on things missing, because it's both the 12th house. So lost in translation kind of situations, things going missing, technological things, words, messages, texts. You might forget your dreams, and so on and so forth. Yes, hopefully not anything major, like a pet or an actual person. That is what I have to say about those. Then we have February 8th, we have Sun squares Uranus. It's a small transit. It's between your 11th house and your 2nd house. So it's a little bit of a crisis of values. And it might just appear as people with Aquarius Sun versus your values. Okay, so you might rebel each other's values. You might have a little bit of a clash, but Uranus usually provides a eureka, a solution. What is this about? And astrology can be facilitating that, and you can have astrology as a skill. Now, this is a great time for you to develop as an astrologer when Uranus is in your 2nd house. It's literally growing the skill of being an astrologer or a scientist and so on. So yeah, Mercury square Jupiter, February 10th, together with the lunation that we'll soon speak about. This is for you. Okay, it's happening between your 11th and your 2nd. Again, you might be spending more than you planned to at this time. You seem to be able to have a choice on the matter, okay? You're just going to be more optimistic. With Jupiter, if it is your benefic of sect, there is more choice. I haven't done an episode of like fate and free will and stuff like that. But there are levels, there are degrees of freedom when it comes to astrology. There are degrees of choice, there are degrees of accessibility of choice, okay? And there are things that can assist you in accessing choice, but you also want to make sure that what you are asking for is choice rather than validation of value, okay? So sometimes, let's say if a person is, it takes the example of suicide with Uranus, and this is trigger suicide. Please understand, I don't remember all my triggers. I'm recovering myself. So yes, I'm trying to remember them, but don't rely on that. I don't want you triggered or hurt by me. So let's take the issue of suicide. Let's say a person is dealing with suicide. And for some person, it may mean that they want to have a choice over their life, and that would help them to feel less powerless in the face of a situation. Okay, so kind of like that with dignity and stuff like that. And even having this choice or the accessibility to make that choice is important for them to want to live. Whereas another person just wants to feel valued and seen and loved. And when they get this feeling, it alleviates the suicidal tendencies. So it can be a little bit of both, but you want to make sure that you understand which is which, or that you're tending to both of them. Okay, because sometimes it's not just about asking for a choice, but also genuinely being validated, knowing you are valid. Of course, I see here Venus on the degree of to kill or be killed, but this is not a suicide. 22 is not suicide. So, what else do we see here? Yeah, Mercury, Jupiter. So, small details can become big. And it is a bit of a crisis situation because Mercury is the applied science and Jupiter is kind of like the theory of or the philosophy. So there's a little bit of a challenge to apply a philosophy here. Okay. And that is the topic of this transit. And so things do not work as well as they work on paper in the reality. And you just have to work with it through engineering, through creative solutions, and so on. But yes, it's also Mercury is also expensive, so my money might fly out of the pocket as well. Mercury square Uranus. So Mercury square. This is where, as an outer planet girl, and this has been approved because my dominants are Moon, Neptune, and Pluto, and a signature of a Scorpio. Yes, even though I don't have ascendant Sun or Moon in Scorpio, I do have stellium there. So I can definitely say that when it comes to outer planets, and let's say we're talking about expenses, because Mercury is both a eureka about how to apply something through a crisis. So it's kind of like a fortunate mistake, but it can be kind of like unpleasant as well. When we talk about outer planets, and I should make like a completely, separate video about this. This is where in transit, if you're not working natally with this energy and it's in transit, this is where money flies out of the pocket, words fly out of the mouth, the technology is having a breakdown, an overwhelm, okay, overflow of data, and there's a crisis, there's a data crisis. So this, my advice here is not be aware, do this, come on, it's a transit, and if it's not if it's natally, then you're more prone to this, and you might have more tools to work with that. If it's a transit for you, okay, and it does hit on something personal in your chart, then budget accordingly. This is a day where I'm going to have some unexpected, overly excited nervous system thingy where money is going to go out of the pocket. Okay? Plan for this to be taken place rather than and with Uranus, set intention. Okay, set intention that it's because the hidden message is something is your budget is needing to be liberated. Okay, money needs to fly out of the pocket, and you might need to spend on a conference, and you might need to um, um, spend on your visibility on social media, or you might need to spend on a networking event. Okay, this Uranus in your second house is kind of like, you don't be so stiff with the money, because Taurus is fixed, but also it can actually be, in a very rare cases, it can actually be, oh well, suddenly you save money instead of spending it. I predict this to be, suddenly you spend this money, you make this purchase. The timing is inconvenient. This is why this is a square. Okay, for the trines, the sextiles, I don't even talk. It's like, I know I need this. Now is a good time to buy it. This is a good price, and I got the money. Okay, that's a sextile and or a trine. Okay, but the hard aspects is where I know I need this, I don't have the money, I still do it, or I get into debt to do it, or I don't know if I'm going to even like this tomorrow, but I have been watching this for a long, long time, or, oh my God, that seems like so cute, I really gotta buy it. And then the next day is kind of like, what was I thinking? Okay. Instead of going, oh, don't make these choices, don't this, don't that, the excitatory state of a square or an opposition is not something that I advise you to try if it's a transit for you and not like a return of a natal aspect. I don't advise you to even attempt at doing like the whole Torah in, a couple of days. It won't happen. Okay, be realistic. You don't know this energy, so be realistic. This is a part of learning to work with a chaotic system. Gone are the Saturn days of Capricorn. Okay, for the next 248 years. We're going to have a little bit of September to November of them, but the rest is gone are the days where you can save money, invest in everlasting stocks. Gone are the days. Gone are the days. Okay, but also gone are the days where you can have a 30 years mortgage as well. Like people won't. It's like 30 years. Okay. This is Aquarius. It's an earth sign. You don't mess with it that much. But on the other hand, it's not particularly materialistic. Okay, it's just like. But on the other hand, what Capricorn is taken for granted, like that you have to pay for sleeping on the ground in a tent. Aquarius is like, the fuck? What did you just? What? This is Earth. This is air. Here is a river with water. You want me to pay for what? I keep the place clean, don't worry. I might play some guitar. This is it. You want me to pay for what? You say I cannot walk here because of what? I have a gun to deal with the bears. Okay? And so this is kind of like the transit. That's the Mercury Uranus. You might buy a gun to deal with the bears. So, with the co-presence of Mars there. Then we have February 7. Okay, going chronologically. That was a satire. We have Venus squaring the nodes from the 18th degree of Capricorn. So this is before she ingresses into Aquarius. She also squares the nodes. Granted that you're not like breaking up with the partner. When we talk about like your expenses, there's going to be some fated costs. Okay? Venus squares the nodes from Capricorn. And they might bring even a little bit of a loss here, unless you invest in your bedroom, in something that facilitates your dreams, So let's say you buy something to put to cover your eyes, so that you can dream better, or you fix, let's say you cannot close the window or something like this in your bedrooms, and you fix that. So, or you buy warmer shoes or warmer socks, so that you can fall asleep better and have a good temperature at night, and you're not going to wake up at night. Really stuff practical, very, very practical, but fated. So it can be something small that stands the test of time. In the 18th degree, you might want to be cautious if it's like a tincture or something like this, because the 18th is poison. So it can be good, but poison, like tincture, like herbs, but it can also be some fated food poisoning or something like that that bothers you with your sleep. So if you can be cautious, if not, then you see it's fated, she squares the nodes, then you release what you cannot control of. What? No more big drama? We're done with the drama? It's only Mars square Jupiter? Look at this month. So we have Venus squares Jupiter, February 25. It's the two benefics. This square is happening when Venus is in Aquarius and she conjuncts Mars. So this is both recovering two in one, okay? Both Venus and Mars squaring Jupiter. Mars will square the day after, 2 days after. So Venus-Mars conjunction, your Mars ruling you, right? Square to Jupiter. This is where your undermining action can get big. Why am I saying undermining action? Because the ruler of your 11th is in the 12th house. Okay, so big dreams, you act on them, but it's a little bit of undermining, unless those dreams are somehow related to the dream state, activism in favor of people who are secluded, homeless, refugees, in jail, in hospital, imprisoned in some way. So this can be a bit remedial, but still you might, there's a little bit of a surrender of whether it will be successful or not. And with Jupiter, you're acting big now. You're a big talker, but also a big walker of that talk, which can be lovely. Okay. So that's it. Now let's go to the lunations. February 10th, we have a lunation in your 11th house. So if your 11th house was not packed enough, now you also have a new moon. New moon? New moon. And some new beginning. And the new moon is releasing from a square to Uranus. The word releasing is misleading because it's unleashing from Uranus. Some new beginning is unleashing for you. It is involving your 5th house and your 4th house. And this is in your 11th. So you have maybe a dream of a house that is good for you and the children. But then your partner is rebellious because your means don't, okay? You're not able to currently make this much money. So there's a crisis. So now you have, maybe you're dealing with the housing crisis because you want to have a child, or you have a child and you want the house to accommodate. And of course, with a royal child like this, of course, you would want to accommodate. And the second house, where Venus is, the practical stuff, that's working with this Uranus, because Venus is in Capricorn, it's kind of telling you, well, we can't afford it now. But it's like, hey, the new child is coming. What do you mean we can't afford it? And so there is a little bit of a crisis where you're going to have to find an innovative solution. So you want to think about reinventing IKEA. we're talking about also scientific solutions. So, yeah, I'm not, and it's not so much like a smart home here, more like, you know, does this house survive a storm? Okay, and Uranus is kind of like, how about an earthquake? Okay, it's a little bit of a crisis, but the underlying meaning is a eureka, an innovation, something new, something that liberates you. Is if you had the dreams as a child, to do with a home and there's or housing. For example, when I was a child, I liked houses made of trees. Yes, and my mother told me it's not practical. So go tell this to the Swedes and the Americans, but I liked houses that are made of wood, or tree houses. And then I found a Dutch person that was doing like they're recycling crazy stuff, and they're building a house into a tree that they are shaping in some way. And I was like, that sounds so cool. Um, so it might be something like a housing agenda that you have, and your scale is kind of like, I don't know if I can do this, but you can see what comes up. Okay. um, so yes, and maybe your partner can help, but right now it seems more like your partner is helping you to revolt against this, crazy new idea that you have. Um, but your value is to go with the crazy right now. And maybe that's a good thing. It's the closing square now. It's the closing square of the sun and moon. It means that it's not new to you, but now you kind of have, there is a crisis that might force up your a new beginning, that you go for it. Full moon, and this is February 24. And we have the full moon with the moon in Virgo and the sun in Pisces. So this is on your 6th and 12th axis with Mercury in your 12th. So strong emphasis on your 12th house. Well, you gain from this. There is some loss involved, or you're going to become more intimate with a romantic partner, and there is gain to be made. Okay, you might even gain a little bit of fame here, or your partner might gain a little bit of fame here. It's not necessarily that like you're sleeping with a famous person. It's more like your romantic partner is coming to the bedroom. Your romantic, when I say partner, I mean casual here, like dating partner is going to the bedroom, where and the ruler is in your second house, which is Venus ruled, and Venus is also ruling your seventh house. And so it might be kind of like you might be one of the couples where you go like, oh, let's just get to know each other a little better, um, in a hotel or so, and you both think there's nothing much, we're going to have some good time and that's it, and you end up engaged. Okay. But yes, you don't want to be over idealizing here. The flair of unexpected is in the air. And this is where you want to allow this to flow, especially when Venus and Mars here are squaring. Who's squaring? They are, yes, applying to square Uranus. So it's a new beginning with a little bit of, it can be a sudden makeup, sudden breakup kind of thing. If you are in a long-term relationship, it just means that you might have more romance, or you might have a child, okay, if you want to have conception. And and maybe if you have dreaming to have a child together, then that might be an albeit the Saturn good time to do so. And again, I don't know how to plan. Like I'm not doing Planned Parenthood, not in this way and not in that way. So yeah, but definitely new beginning. And of course, it's going to be affecting your health and going to be affecting your mental health. It's also a little bit of a eureka. How does my romantic life, or if you're a parent, how is being a parent affecting my dreams, affecting my mental state, affecting my physical state? Those connections between these houses are going to reveal themselves. So, yeah. It can also be something as simple as your child and your cat are sleeping in the same bed with you in the bedroom. Like it really doesn't have to be anything too dramatic. So, but this is full moon. It's a culmination. You must understand that you are fulfilling something now. So if it's something sexual, there's sexual fulfillment. It doesn't mean that there's going to be continuation. You have to look at when the relationship started, and your synastry and composite and all those stuff. So I hope this was useful to you. This is your and look at this Mars. Then this is Mars hour. It's your hour, and I'm going to release this on your hour.